That was definitely interference. I'll have to look at the film on second and third down.
What did you see on that throw to Sky on 4th and 1?
One-on-one.
What needs to change between now and then to get anything?
Not much. Just got to execute better.
The drama in the NFL's AFC North just hit a boiling point, and Aaron Rodgers is right in the eye of the storm. What went from a must-win game for the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Cleveland Browns turned into one of the most talked-about controversial endings of the season. Rodgers walked off the field, not just with a loss, but with a fiery reaction that's now making headlines league-wide. This isn't just a loss. It's bad news for Aaron Rodgers, and it could change the course of his season and maybe even his career. The Steelers entered Week 17 with a real chance to lock up the AFC North and clinch a playoff berth. A win over the Browns would have been enough. Instead, Pittsburgh lost 13-6 in a defensive slugfest that saw the Steelers fail to score a touchdown. Rodgers' stat line that day was far from vintage: 21 of 39 passing for just 168 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. That's not the kind of performance you expect from a four-time MVP, but it also wasn't the only headline from the game. The Browns, who headed into the game with a losing record, came out focused, fast, and opportunistic. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders put together a solid performance, and Cleveland's defense bent but did not break, especially when it mattered most. With time winding down and trailing by just 7, the Steelers mounted a final drive into Cleveland territory. Rodgers orchestrated a promising march into the red zone, but when it mattered most, nothing clicked. On the game's final play, Rodgers fired a pass toward veteran wideout Marquez Valdes-Scantling in the corner of the end zone. As Valdes-Scantling and Browns cornerback Denzel Ward leapt for the ball, Ward appeared to make contact that many onlookers believed should have been flagged as pass interference. But the officials let it stand. No flag, no review. Game over. Steelers lose. Steelers out of their division-clinching opportunity. Playoffs? Now up to Week 18. And amidst it all, Rodgers spoke out. He didn't hide his feelings after the game. Asked about the final play, Rodgers didn't mince words when he described what he saw. It was definitely interference. Rodgers said when asked about what he saw on the final play, "I'll have to look at the film." That line, short, blunt, and pointed, echoed fan frustration across the NFL. Many fans watched the sequence in real time and felt the call should have gone Pittsburgh's way. Rodgers wasn't alone either. Valdes-Scantling himself later echoed similar sentiments, saying he thought he should have gotten the call, though he was more measured about it. This wasn't Rodgers blaming teammates or himself, it was Rodgers blaming the referees. And that rarely ends well. Calling out officials publicly, especially immediately after a game, is something players generally avoid. The NFL has strict rules about criticizing referees, and players often face fines for doing so. Rodgers' comment that there was definitely interference might not only sting emotionally, it could come with a real penalty from the league office. There's been speculation that the NFL might discipline him for this outburst, especially given the league's tendency to fine players for similar remarks. This is not the kind of publicity a veteran quarterback wants in a must-win season, especially with next week's game now absolutely critical. Even without the controversy, Pittsburgh's offense simply didn't show up the way you'd expect for a team trying to clinch a division. Rodgers' struggles weren't just limited to the final play. Across the whole afternoon, he was kept mostly in check by a Browns defense that refused to give big chunks of yardage. Without DK Metcalf, suspended after an altercation with a fan, defenses weren't as terrified of Pittsburgh's vertical threat, and that allowed Cleveland to load up and take away Rodgers' most dangerous weapons. A veteran quarterback like Rodgers should be able to adapt, but this day, he couldn't find the rhythm needed to lift his team into the end zone. 2 field goals from Chris Boswell were all Pittsburgh could muster. Meanwhile, Cleveland's defense deserves credit, not just for forcing the stop on 4th down, but for holding Pittsburgh to 0 offensive touchdowns. That's a rare feat in the NFL, especially against a quarterback of Rodgers' caliber. Whether it was Ward's physical coverage or the Browns' ability to tighten up in clutch moments, Rodgers and the Steelers simply couldn't push through. And that makes Rodgers' frustration even more understandable, because it wasn't just a missed call. It was the culmination of an offensive day that never got going. The implications of this loss are huge. Instead of Pittsburgh clinching the division on Sunday, the Steelers now find themselves in a win-or-go-home situation in Week 18 against the Baltimore Ravens. The winner of that game gets the AFC North title and a postseason berth. Rodgers and the Steelers need a victory next week. If they don't get it, their season will end without the playoffs. That's a dramatic fall for a team that looked poised to clinch just days ago. For Rodgers, it could also mark the loss of his last chance at a playoff run this season, and with his age and contract situation, that's not just disappointing. It's potentially devastating for his legacy in Pittsburgh. Rodgers has always been a leader and a voice in the locker room, but after this loss, some questions are emerging. Is Rodgers' criticism of the officials helpful? Does it fuel his team, or does it distract from refocusing on the upcoming must-win game? His remarks about the pass interference, especially in a loss where Pittsburgh never reached the end zone offensively, have sparked debate. Some fans agree with his assessment. Others think he should be pointing toward execution issues, not officiating. Either way, this moment puts a spotlight on Rodgers' leadership at a critical time in the season. It's not just about one game anymore, it's about how he responds under significant pressure. When Rodgers said what he did, fans on social media immediately reacted. Many agreed with his frustration, especially those who watched the play live and felt the contact warranted a flag. In fact, widespread fan sentiment backed Rodgers' view that pass interference was definitely there. But others criticized the quarterback for calling out officials so publicly, arguing that teams should focus on execution rather than officiating after a loss. With Rodgers now 42 years old, there's speculation this could be his final season. When asked about the possibility that Sunday's game against the Ravens might be Rodgers' last, Mike Tomlin was clear. He's doing everything in his power to make sure it's not. "I don't know that I've taken time to ponder that. I'm just committed to making sure that it's not," Tomlin said. He's certainly been an awesome contributor to our efforts, not only from a talent perspective and an experience perspective, but just his professionalism. His relationship with the game, his love for his teammates, and his willingness to help them grow and get better and gain better understanding each and every day has been cool to be a part of. Tomlin emphasized that games like the upcoming clash with Baltimore are exactly why Rodgers was brought to Pittsburgh. "I think we've benefited from that at every step of the journey." His experience and what he's been able to do for a collective relative to thick moments. Aaron Rodgers wasn't just beaten by a Browns defense in Week 17, he was left on the brink of elimination, with a controversial final play and a harsh spotlight on his reactions. His comments about the no call are now part of the narrative. Not just because he said them, but because next week they might come back to influence how the team, the league, and the fans remember this moment. Rodgers' legacy, the Steelers' season, and the AFC North title are now all hanging in the balance because of what happened and what he said afterward.